The National Electrical Code, or NEC, does not specify a maximum height for circuit breakers installed in a dwelling. The NEC mandates that electrical equipment, and this includes circuit breakers, must be readily accessible. Readily accessible, as defined by the NEC, means capable of being reached quickly for operation, renewal, or inspections without requiring those to whom ready access is requisite to climb over or remove obstacles or to resort to portable ladders, and so forth. The intent is to ensure that circuit breakers can be easily accessed for operation, inspection, and maintenance without the need for specialized tools or equipment. In most residential installations, circuit breakers are housed within a panel board. This panel board is typically mounted on a wall in a location deemed convenient, such as a utility room, a garage, or another accessible area within the dwelling. The specific height at which a panel board is installed can vary. This variation depends on several factors, including the manufacturer of the panel board, the specific application for which it is being used, and local building codes or regulations that may be in effect. However, a common practice is to install the panel board at a height that is comfortable and easily reachable for the average person. This helps ensure that the circuit breakers within the panel board meet the readily accessible requirement outlined in the NEC. To reiterate, the NEC does not provide a specific numerical maximum height for circuit breakers in a dwelling. The focus is on ensuring they are readily accessible. If there are concerns about the accessibility of circuit breakers in a home, it is recommended to seek the expertise of a qualified electrician. A qualified electrician possesses the knowledge and experience to assess the specific situation. They can determine whether the circuit breakers are readily accessible and whether they comply with the requirements of the NEC and any other applicable local codes or regulations. They can also provide recommendations for addressing any accessibility issues that may be identified, ensuring the safety and compliance of the electrical installation. The electrician will likely consider the following factors when evaluating the accessibility of circuit breakers. Firstly, the clear space around the panel board. The NEC requires a certain amount of clear space in front of electrical equipment, including panel boards, to allow for safe operation and maintenance. This clear space should be free of obstructions that could hinder access to the circuit breakers. Secondly, the height of the top circuit breaker. While the NEC doesn't specify a maximum height, an electrician will assess whether the top circuit breaker is within a reasonable reach for most individuals. If the top circuit breaker is excessively high, it may be deemed not readily accessible. Thirdly, the presence of any obstructions. Are there any obstacles that could impede access to the circuit breakers, such as furniture, storage items, or other equipment? Obstructions can make it difficult to reach the circuit breakers quickly and safely, which would violate the readily accessible requirement. Fourthly, the need for special equipment. Does accessing the circuit breakers require the use of a portable ladder, stool, or other special equipment? If so, this would generally indicate that the circuit breakers are not readily accessible. Fifthly, compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA. While the ADA primarily applies to commercial and public accommodations, its principles of accessibility can be relevant in residential settings as well, particularly if the dwelling is intended for use by individuals with disabilities. An electrician may consider ADA guidelines to ensure that the circuit breakers are accessible to people with a range of physical abilities. In addition to assessing the physical accessibility of the circuit breakers, an electrician can also evaluate other aspects of the electrical installation to ensure safety and compliance. This may include checking the wiring, grounding, and overcurrent protection to verify that they meet the requirements of the NEC. The electrician can also identify any potential hazards or code violations that may exist. Remember, electrical work can be dangerous. It should only be performed by qualified individuals who have the necessary training and experience. If there are any doubts about electrical safety or code compliance, always consult with a licensed electrician. Attempting to perform electrical work without proper knowledge and skills can lead to serious injury or property damage. In summary, while the NEC does not specify a maximum height for circuit breakers in a dwelling, the readily accessible requirement is paramount. This means that circuit breakers must be easily reached for operation, inspection, and maintenance without the need for ladders or special equipment. If you have concerns about the accessibility of your circuit breakers, a qualified electrician can assess the situation and ensure that your electrical system meets the requirements of the NEC and other applicable codes. In addition to the readily accessible requirement, it's worth noting some other relevant sections of the NEC that may indirectly influence the height and location of circuit breakers. 110.26 Spaces of electrical equipment deals with the working space around electrical equipment that operates at 600 volts, nominal or less. While this section primarily focuses on commercial and industrial installations, its principles of providing adequate space for safe operation and maintenance can also be applied to residential settings. 110.26 mandates specific dimensions for working space in front of electrical equipment, including minimum depth, width, and height. These dimensions are intended to allow electricians and other qualified personnel to safely access and work on the equipment. Although this section doesn't directly dictate the height of circuit breakers, it emphasizes the importance of providing adequate space around electrical equipment to ensure accessibility and safety. 240.24 Location in or on premises contains several requirements related to the location of overcurrent devices, including circuit breakers. 240.24 states that overcurrent devices shall be readily accessible. This reiterates the readily accessible requirement. 240.24b addresses the location of overcurrent devices in bathrooms. It prohibits overcurrent devices from being located in bathrooms of dwelling units, as well as in guest rooms or guest suites of hotels and motels. This prohibition is intended to prevent accidental contact with energized parts in damp or wet locations. 240.24c discusses the location of overcurrent devices relative to the equipment they supply. It generally requires that overcurrent devices be located at the point where the conductors receive their supply. This helps ensure that the conductors are properly protected against overcurrents. While this section doesn't directly specify the height of circuit breakers, it influences their location within the electrical system. 408.36 Minimum headroom applies to switchboards and panel boards installed in commercial and industrial settings. It requires a minimum headroom of 6 feet 6 inches above the switchboard or panel board. This requirement is intended to provide adequate space for electricians to work on the equipment safely. While this section doesn't apply to residential installations, it demonstrates the NEC concern with providing sufficient headroom around electrical equipment. 404.8 Accessibility and grouping addresses the accessibility and grouping of switches, circuit breakers, and other control devices. 404.8 specifically addresses switches and circuit breakers used as switches. It requires that switches and circuit breakers used as switches be installed so that the center of the grip of the operating handle, when in its highest position, is not more than 6 feet 7 inches above the floor or working platform. This requirement is intended to ensure that switches and circuit breakers used for switching purposes are readily accessible to individuals of varying heights. However, it's important to note that this requirement applies specifically to switches and circuit breakers used as switches, not to circuit breakers in general. 100 Definitions provides definitions for various terms used throughout the NEC, including readily accessible. As mentioned earlier, readily accessible means capable of being reached quickly for operation, renewal, or inspections without requiring those to whom ready access is requisite to climb over or remove obstacles or to resort to portable ladders, and so forth. This definition is crucial for understanding the NEC intent regarding the accessibility of electrical equipment. In addition to the NEC, local building codes and regulations may also impose requirements related to the height and location of circuit breakers. These local codes may be more restrictive than the NEC, so it's important to check with the local authorities to ensure compliance. Local codes may address issues such as the minimum or maximum height of panel boards, the clear space required around electrical equipment, and accessibility requirements for individuals with disabilities. When installing or modifying an electrical system, it's always best to consult with a qualified electrician who is familiar with the NEC and local codes. An electrician can ensure that the installation is safe, code compliant, and meets the specific needs of the dwelling. They can also provide guidance on selecting the appropriate equipment and materials, and on performing the work in a professional and workmanlike manner. Remember that electrical work can be dangerous and should only be performed by qualified individuals. Attempting to perform electrical work without proper knowledge and skills can lead to serious injury or property damage. In conclusion, while the NEC does not specify a numerical maximum height for circuit breakers in a dwelling, the readily accessible requirement is the guiding principle. This means that circuit breakers must be easily reached for operation, inspection, and maintenance without the need for ladders or special equipment. Other sections of the NEC, such as those dealing with working space, location of overcurrent devices, and accessibility of switches, provide additional context and guidance. Local building codes and regulations may also impose requirements related to the height and location of circuit breakers. When in doubt, consult with a qualified electrician to ensure that your electrical system is safe, code compliant, and meets your specific needs. The absence of a specific maximum height in the NEC doesn't imply that circuit breakers can be installed at any height. The readily accessible requirement places a practical limit on how high circuit breakers can be installed. If a circuit breaker is installed so high that it cannot be easily reached by most individuals, it would likely be considered a violation of the NEC. The intent of the readily accessible requirement is to ensure that circuit breakers can be quickly and easily accessed in the event of a fault or emergency. This is crucial for protecting people and property from electrical hazards. If a circuit breaker is difficult to reach, it may delay the response to an electrical problem, which could have serious consequences. In addition to the readily accessible requirement, it's also important to consider the safety of individuals who may need to access the circuit breakers. For example, if a dwelling is occupied by elderly individuals or people with disabilities, the circuit breakers should be installed at a height that is comfortable and easily reachable for them. It may be necessary to install the panel board at a low height to accommodate their needs. Another consideration is the presence of children in the dwelling. Circuit breakers should be installed in a location where they are not easily accessible to children to prevent them from tampering with the electrical system. This may involve installing the panel board in a locked cabinet or at a higher height that is out of reach of children. The location of the panel board should also be carefully considered to minimize the risk of damage from water or other hazards. Panel boards should not be installed in damp or wet locations, such as bathrooms or basements, unless they are specifically designed for such environments. Panel boards should also be protected from physical damage, such as from vehicles or falling objects. The installation of circuit breakers is an important aspect of electrical safety. By following the requirements of the NEC and local codes, and by considering the specific needs of the occupants of the dwelling, you can ensure that the electrical system is safe, reliable, and accessible.